Hi, and welcome. You're listening to the X22 Report. My name is Dave, and this is episode 1109B, and today's date is October 24th, 2016, and the title of the episode is U.S. Government Moves to Plan Who Knows What? Advanced Weapons Are Ready to Ship to the Middle East. Let's get into the economic collapse, political and geopolitical news. Now, out in Canada, we understand that Canada is trying to push the trade deal CETA on the EU. We know the TTIP is not going anywhere. Now CETA is not going anywhere. And there is a lawyer, Rocco Galati, and others, where they're launching a constitutional challenge against CETA in the Federal Court of Canada. And the statement of claim challenging the Canada-EU Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement was filed at the Federal Court of Canada on Friday, October 21st. Now, this comes at the same time where the EU country of Belgium refused to sign the deal, and the plaintiff's central challenge has many different issues with CETA. One being the federal government does not have the constitutional authority to sign, execute, and implement the treaties without the express prior authority of Parliament through an Act of Parliament. The CETA guts and extinguishes the constitutionally protected judiciary in Canada by creating foreign tribunals to determine property and legal issues in Canada without any judicial oversight or jurisdiction of the Canadian courts. Of course, this is exactly what the central bankers want, the corporations want. They want a court system which is outside of the governments. The other one is various articles of the CETA violate constitutional enshrined rights in the Charter of Rights and Freedoms and overrides charter guarantees that ground Canada's ability to mount public programs on health, education, social services, and public utilities, including the elimination of subsidies, monopolies, and state enterprises for public welfare. In short, the treaty places the rights of private foreign investors over those of the Canadian Constitution and Canadian citizens. And this is the same exact thing that the TPP, the TTIP is. It puts the powers above the government, above the people, and leaves them with the central bank, the corporations, and they have the final say, not the people anymore. And I've said this before. They're trying to introduce this world court, which already exists, but they want to expand it, where they can control governments around the world. And when everyone thinks of a new world order or a new world government, they always think of the UN. They don't think of, maybe the companies, the central banks, if they have the ability to override the sovereignty of the country, the sovereignty of the people, they then have control of the country. Think about it. They have control of the creation of money, currency. They have control over the corporate media. And if they can get control over what laws and what the government has to do in each one of these countries, they can sit on top of every single government, and every government would be a puppet. This is why they want the TTIP, the TPP, CETA passed so badly. This would give them their one world government. And when we look at the internet, which has been moved to the UN, now they can control the information flow on the internet. They have control of the corporate media. They have control of the currency, and they have control over the governments. And this is what they're trying to do. And what they're going to do is they're going to try to get rid of freedoms, rights in each and every one of these countries. Even here in the United States. It has already started here in the United States. I mean, think about it. Civil asset forfeiture. Now, this allows cops to seize your property, cash, jewelry, cars, and even your home without charging or convicting you with a crime. The 5th and 14th Amendments are supposed to prohibit the government taking of life, liberty, and property without due process of law, but they found a way around it, which they really didn't, because nothing overrides the Constitution, the rights of the people. But what they do is they try to make you believe that they found a way around it. Unless the people stand up, guess what? They will win every single time and make everyone believe that they have the right to do this. So what they did was, in a civil asset forfeiture case, the government proceeds directly against your property. You don't need to be convicted of a crime. So a criminal procedure does not apply. So they just go after your property. And because the forfeiture is against your property, you are a third-party claimant in related court proceedings. Basically, this is legalized theft. They did this throughout history. You'd be riding down a road in your horse and carriage. The government individuals would stop the horse and carriage and say, "Give me your gold, give me your silver. You have no right to it. The king wants it." This is exactly what's going on right here. We also have the destruction of the healthcare system. The Obama administration promised Americans the Affordable Care Act. It would, you'd be able to keep your plan, you'd be able to keep your doctor. Premiums would be very low. Families making less than $250,000 per year would not see any form of tax increase. There'd be more choices, lower cost, and every American would be insured. Well, not a single one of those promises have been kept. In fact, the opposite of every one of those has happened. We also see excessive taxation. Grover Norquist, president of the Americans for Tax Reform, said, "The American income tax is perhaps the most dramatic example of how our government grows at the expense of liberty, slowly, constantly, continuously." And you can see it over time. If we go back 102 years, back to 1913, actually 103 years, we can see back in 1913, the top tax bracket was 7%. Today, it's close to 40%. The tax bracket range back in 1913 was between 1 and 7%. Today, it's between 10 and 40%. We see the family standard deduction in today's dollars was $94,837. Today, it's $12,600. Back in 1913, total pages in tax code, it was only 400. Today, 73,954. Actually, what we're seeing here is that if you work 52 weeks during 2016, 16 weeks of your labor went to the IRS. So, in reality, you're working, 4 months or so for free for the government. And as time goes on, this is going to get worse and worse. This is how they enslave the population, slowly but surely. And we can see it when you look back over time. It is completely apparent. And we know that they're very afraid of the people finding out about all of this. Many people don't look at this. They just accept it every single day. And they realize eventually what's going to happen is people are going to get upset. This happens throughout history. When people are taxed way too much, they work and work and work. They can't get anywhere. Most of their money that they earn goes to the government. And what happens is these people in power, they need to use force on those who are trying to take their power. And this is why they've been trying to take the weapons away from people. This is why they're trying to make people believe they don't have freedom of the speech. This is why they're setting up free speech zones. This is why they created the drone laws where they're saying that you can't fly drones. And we're already seeing that police departments now, well, they're attaching stun guns to their police drones. And we can see that they are in the initial phases right now, but they're experimenting with them. And this is just one step away from arming a drone, which eventually will happen. And we knew this was going to happen going way back because it started out as cameras, lights. We're just going to fly the drones over to observe, and now they're putting stun guns on there because if there is a crowd, if there's something going on, they're going to use these drones to keep order. And once they figure out that the stun guns are not enough, they will mount these drones with lethal weapons. And this, as we know, always happens throughout history. It might not be with drones, but it's with other technology of that time where they use it on the people. And we can see right now what they're most afraid of is the people. They're afraid for their authority. They're afraid that we'll figure out it's the central bank. They're afraid we'll figure out that they're corrupt. They're afraid that we'll figure out it's time for them to go. If we can just stop fighting with each other and we can come together, all come together, black, white, orange, purple, doesn't matter. We're all people. We all want the same thing. We want to live. We want to bring up our children. We want to make money and keep the money that we earn. We don't want to hand it over to the government. We don't want to hand over our rights, our freedoms. We don't want the government to tell us what to do, what to put in our bodies. So if we can just all come together and stop fighting, because the government really wants us to fight amongst each other. Once we can stop this, we can be a force to be reckoned with. And let me just say, the government could and will not be able to stop us. Now, it looks like the 72-hour ceasefire in Yemen, well, it has expired this weekend, and fighting has resumed almost immediately thereafter. Both sides, they spent a lot of time accusing one another of violations, and we knew this ceasefire was going nowhere. Really, the United States government, central bankers, Saudi Arabia, they wanted the ceasefire to reorganize, and they always use this time to plan, reorganize, and use it to then bomb different areas. And we can see right now Saudi warplanes, they came in, they bombed Sana'a. This is the capital of Yemen, and they're just continually bombing this area, and they're trying to get the Yemeni people to say, I give. Yes, we would like the puppet government back in, but the Houthis, the Yemeni people, they're much, much tougher than the U.S. government central bankers thought they were, and this is going on for a longer and longer period of time. This is why the United States was trying to get into the fight. This is why they were using that false flag of missiles being launched at the USS Mason and the USS Ponce, and we can see right now that that whole story is completely fake, phony, and false. It was a false flag, and they just used it to knock out the radar systems during the ceasefire period of time to give Saudi Arabia a little bit of an edge. But we can see right now the Houthis and the people of Yemen, they are not giving in right at all. We see the spokesman of the Iraqi Joint Operations Command, right now he's saying that the Turkish army, they are not participating in the Mosul offensive against the Islamic State right now. The United States is there, and we can see the United States government, they're sending in extra intelligence analysts to Iraq to collect all the Islamic data in Mosul. Now, this is a cleanup operation. We've seen this happen before. The United States government central bankers go in, they allow the Islamic State free passage out of this area. They come in, they clean up all the data, they clean up all the intelligence, they clean up the entire area. Sometimes they use chemical weapons to say, oh, this whole area is infected, don't go in there. We have the suits, we can go in there, and they use it to clean up the entire area. It's a cleanup job, and that's exactly what they're doing. We see the U.S. State Department says Assad right now is preventing peace in Syria. State Department spokesman John Kirby openly stated that the only thing standing in the way of a permanent ceasefire is Assad. He's making it very, very difficult. So, in other words, if Assad would just step down and let us have our way with this country, we wouldn't have to keep killing civilians, funding proxy terrorists, bombing Syrian infrastructure. The U.S. government wouldn't have to do all of this stuff. We wouldn't have to bring in armed forces into a sovereign country. I mean, listen to what they're saying. The problem is an elected president by the people of Syria. Syria is a sovereign country. The people will decide who that leader is, not the United States. The United States has no right to this. And first of all, the United States, they don't care about the leader. What they do care about is that Assad wouldn't allow the pipeline through his country. This is where this all comes from. They asked Assad, listen, we want to build a pipeline through your country. Assad said, no, I'm going to build a pipeline with Iran and bring that into Europe. That's when all of this started. And the United States government central bankers, they already had plans way before that, where they were going to go into Sudan, go into Yemen, Libya, Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, and then end up in Iran. This was supposed to be completed by 2008. Why? To prop up the petrodollar. Remove those individuals who aren't trading their oil using dollars. That's what all of this is all about. Nothing to do with freedom, nothing to do with democracy, nothing to do with, oh, he's a bad leader, he's a dictator. They don't care about that. Because if you look at the countries where they put in the puppet governments, guess what? Most of those leaders are dictators. Most of those individuals come down hard on those people who don't want them there, under the direction of the United States. I mean, look at Ukraine. Once the United States government central bankers had a coup d'etat, they threw out the elected president in Ukraine. All those individuals that objected to this, they were called terrorists. Right off the bat. This is what they do in the Middle East. Once they have regime change, all those individuals, those people in that country who don't agree with the puppet government, they are then called Al-Qaeda. Terrorists. Because that's the way the United States government central bankers sees them. And when they want to remove a government and have regime change, they use paid mercenaries, terrorists, Al-Qaeda, to remove the elected president, the elected official. So we can see right now, this has nothing to do with freedom. This has to do with the bottom line, with oil, with the dollar, with the petrodollar, with a pipeline. And we can see right now that the plan in Syria is not going well. Russia and Syria have been winning against the paid mercenaries. They've been pushing them out. And right now we know Turkey's in there. And they have made zero progress in trying to create this safe zone. They've been in there for the past several days, and the amount of area has not changed, remains no larger than it was last week. So they've made no gains whatsoever. And we see right now, Russia and Syria, they're trying to get the terrorists out of Aleppo, out of the area. They're dropping thousands of leaflets over the East Aleppo districts saying, all the jihadists, please leave this area. They're dropping leaflets of showing all the jihadist leaders that were killed, and you could be next. They're giving them a chance to leave this area. Now, of course, they're not leaving because they're under the direction of the United States government central bankers saying, no, we are going to stay here. We're going to give you reinforcements. Now, the United States government central bankers have been coming up with many different plans. Who knows what plan they're on now? But we can see right now their next move is to bring in advanced weapons. Because you have to remember, Russia and Syria right now, they have the upper hand. They have jets flying around. They're able to bomb the Islamic State. They're able to bomb al-Nusra, the moderate rebels. The terrorist groups do not have an air force. Yes, they have United States and the coalition forces to bomb certain areas, but they can't directly give them cover. They have in certain times, but they were caught. So the United States tries to go and, bomb infrastructure over here, pretend that they're bombing the terrorists over there, they just phone ahead, they radio ahead, and they tell them, leave this area, we'll clear it out for you. And this is what they've been doing. But now it seems that they're moving to the next phase. And looks like what they're going to be doing is bringing in truck-mounted anti-aircraft weapons that could bring down a Russian aircraft, bring down a Syrian aircraft. And of course, at this point, they can say, well, it wasn't the United States. The terrorists, they're the ones who brought down your aircraft. So right now, there's no war with the United States. Of course, Russia's going to see it differently. Syria is going to see it differently. They're going to say you provided them with these weapons. So where do we go from here? Well, it looks like we're getting closer and closer to world war, because at that point, they want Syria and Russia to attack the United States, because then it would give the United States an excuse. You can see how this is going to play out. And we already see with the elections coming up, time is short. The United States government central bankers, they haven't given us any indication who was behind this cyber attack that happened on Friday and Saturday. It looks like they're waiting. And remember, those people that sending in their ballots early, this is what the United States government central bankers are using to figure out in what direction the people of the United States are looking to vote in. And this is how they're going to manipulate the elections and pretty much set up everything if Trump is the one where the popular vote is where that is going. And if the popular vote is going towards Trump, most likely maybe in the middle of this week or the beginning of next week, once a lot of these early ballots are in, they'll make an announcement that it is Russia. They need the propaganda to convince everyone that this election will be postponed if the popular vote goes in the way of Donald Trump. Now, if the popular vote is way off course, where it's 100,000, 200,000, 500,000, a million votes over Hillary Clinton, they will use the cyber attack in a way that they can say we need to postpone this because these numbers make no sense. Because the Electoral College is going to have a very difficult time proving that Hillary is the person when the popular vote is saying otherwise. And it's not just like, a couple thousand people, it's hundreds of thousands or millions of people. This is when they'll use this propaganda. So what we're looking at right now, most likely they're waiting for more of these paper ballots to come in so they can make a determination. They'll make their announcement either the middle of this week, the end of this week, but right before the elections to say, yes, it was Russia who did that DDoS cyber attack. Now, again, if it was a state actor, they're not going to do a surface attack like that. They're going to go deep. They're going to steal information. They're going to bring down the financial institutions. They're going to hit power infrastructure. This would serve no purpose whatsoever. This is a propaganda piece, and there's, different groups out there taking responsibility, but we can see the U.S. government central bankers, they're going to use this event for their interests. And we're just waiting to see where this goes. Now, again, if the election results are very close, they're not going to use this because they can manipulate in a way where it looks like it's just 1,000 votes or so in Hillary's direction, and they don't have to do anything because that is the candidate they want. And the Electoral College can say, yes, this is our candidate, and that's that. Now, Trump's people might get upset, where we can see from Project Veritas, they like to create incidences where they pre-plan these things, and they might pre-plan riots, where they're saying, oh, look at the Trump people. They're rioting in New York. They're rioting in San Francisco. They're rioting, out in Texas or wherever they are, where they can declare maybe a state of emergency or something like that. All of this is coming to a point where this entire system is collapsing, and they need to take control of the situation. They need to bring us to war. They need to control the people. And we can see they're going to do whatever they possibly can to take care of this situation. They have plans in the works already. And we can see we as a people, we all need to come together to stop the central bankers, the U.S. government, those in power who are not elected, who are really running the show. We need to come together to stop these people. And it's not just here in the United States, it's around the world. We need to unite as one. Listen, everyone, thanks a lot for listening. Be well, be safe, and especially be prepared. Thanks a lot.